Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. Excited to be back. And, man, hitting these Mondays are hard. There's something about Mondays here lately that has just been a swing and a miss. So as I'm recording this bumper to get this podcast out, it is Tuesday. And I've been trying to hit on Mondays, and for some reason, that just hasn't been working. So I want to apologize to you guys that are eagerly awaiting the next episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast on Monday, only to find that it's not out there. But here it is. I guess better late than never. But yeah, trying to get that better. But we'll see how that goes. Well, as I usually do, I want to go through some updates real quick and some thank yous and shout outs and our sponsors. I appreciate everyone that helps keep the Pastured Pig Podcast going. So first of all, of course, I have to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters and give a specific shout out to our Boar tier sponsors. These are the people that are kind of the undergirding, the foundation of the podcast. And now obviously every support level is very appreciated and very needed. But these people that decide to part with that $15 a month, I really, really thank you so much for that. And I want to tip my hat to John, to Mark, to Tina, to Chuck, to Fritz, to Noah, to Rob, to Matt, and our newest board tier sponsor, Tango Papa. That's going to be fun. I hope you stick around for a while because I just want to keep saying that every episode. Tango Papa. Okay, updates. So what do we have going on the farm here at Red Toolhouse? Well, we are still pigless. So as I've mentioned, I'm not quite sure what to do with myself. I've been doing a lot of work on the farm, obviously trying to get things in place. Got some good ideas for pasture expansion. I'm going to build a new. Well, everything's portable, so I want to reconstruct or construct a different style of training paddock for piglets when we get in. I do have a line on some piglets, and I'm not going to give any details yet because I'm just not ready to do that. I want to make sure I've got my proverbial ducks in a row or my pigs in a row before I make any statement that comes back later and I have to say, well, that's not true. So anxious to share that as soon as I get the details nailed down. I believe one of the key details are these piglets have not been born yet. So that's one key reason as to why I can't say exactly what we're getting and when we're getting them, because if they ain't hit the ground yet, yeah, we all know how that goes, right? Well, as far as being pigless, I'm pigless on both sides, so I still have not received my processed meat from my 3 breed stock that I took in. So those of you that are really keeping score at home, you may think, Troy, hasn't that been over a month? And I would say, yes, it is actually a month and 3 days. So we took those in January the 22nd, and we are still waiting. Interestingly enough, I had a conversation with our largest USDA processor in our region who has my pigs, and they confided in me today that the reason why they're still holding is they do not have the smoked beef done yet. So the bacon has not been sent out. I have to rephrase that. The bacon has not been smoked yet. And so reading between the lines and some of the questions that they answered, it sounds like they don't have enough volume to justify firing up the smoker, which is my understanding they actually don't have the smoker on site. They send it somewhere else to get it smoked. So they don't have enough volume within the last 30 days to justify sending my 3 hogs worth of bacon to have smoked, which, well, it makes me kind of scratch my head. That can't be good for our largest USDA processor in the central part of the state to not be getting enough pork to smoke in 30 days to justify firing up the smoker. Now, this meat is coming back to us for private consumption. If this was something that was going to be resale, I would be very disappointed right now. In fact, probably be spitting a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. Be a little angry because as you guys know, when we have meat that we're going to sell and we bring back with our, put in our freezers, have our meat handler's license, doing all the things we're supposed to, that clock is ticking. So the date in which that pork was processed, so all my non-smoke stuff, of course, is already bagged up and in a freezer, and I could go get it, but I'd rather not take 2 trips to town. But this clock is ticking. So this meat is already 1/12 of the way to its expiration date if I don't have it all sold by then. Now, normally that's not a problem, but it's just one of those things. It's like, this just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And then the other thing, and this is interesting. This could be my ignorance. Again, doing this for 12 years, you'd think you'd at least know how some of this stuff works. But it got me thinking. So I was asking the guy today, I said, I'm just kind of curious. So obviously my bacon, my pork belly, is still hanging out at your all's processing facility. I assume, since it's been 30 days, it has to be in the freezer. There's no way that has not been frozen. He says, oh, yeah, it's definitely frozen. We freeze it immediately. And then it goes to the smoker where, of course, it is thawed and heated and smoked, all of those type of things. And then it comes back and is refrozen. So I know from personal experience and things of research that just because you freeze something, thaw it out, and freeze it again, it doesn't make it inedible. It doesn't destroy the quality of the meat. But there is a decrease in quality. I mean, you can only freeze and thaw things so many times before texture changes, color changes, the amount of moisture content changes. So there's all kinds of things working against you there. And it just kind of had me scratching my head. I'm thinking, okay, so USDA processor is operating at this level. I would love to. I know it's tough for you guys because a lot of you guys are listening while you're out doing your chores or you're driving and all that, and you don't necessarily have your phone right there. But if you do, if you have your computer or your phone or something where you can email me, Troy@redtoolhouse.com, and say, oh yeah, Troy, I run into that all the time. Yeah, we run a very similar situation where they hold on to stuff, do post-processing, thaw it out, then bring it back, whether it's stuffing sausage or whatever. Just be curious. I just feel like I'm on an island sometimes, especially with this processor. You've heard me lament the situation for them for the past several years. Brand new facility, really nice, all this type of stuff. Thought this was really going to be the golden age of USDA processing in our area. And I tell you, it just seems like we're getting the same old thing over and over again. So it's been a little disheartening. But I would love to get some feedback from you guys to see, have you run into this before? Have you been in a situation where your smoked meat or post-processed value-added products sit for a long time before you guys see those produced? Again, just be curious to hear what you guys say on that. Okay, well, as is our tradition, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. These sponsors, as I say, span the network of Red Tool House Media. So you may see these on our YouTube channel, you may see these in our email blasts, all those type of things. So it's one of those things where the things I'm promoting to you, of course, we get small commissions off of the purchase of these items, and that helps, of course, keep this process rolling. So today is sponsored by Sierra Madre, and we mentioned them last time, but with their emergency sleeping bag. But this time we're talking about the PWS, which is the pure water straw. And this thing, I can say that I really like the sleeping bag, but I think this thing is really just another no-brainer. And to say that it would be wise to have this in a lot of places is obvious. But I think most of all, for anybody who likes to do day hikes, backpacking, or even longer trips type of thing, and they don't want to pack water in, this pure water straw you use it just like you use any other straw, drinking straw. Just imagine it's about the size of a marker. Imagine like an oversized jumbo marker. So I think it's like 6 inches long by 3/4 inch diameter. So it's just a big straw. You can put it in your chest pocket of your t-shirt if you wanted to, if you wear t-shirts with chest pockets. And so you just encounter water. So whether you've got a 5-gallon bucket that you slop the hogs with and you decide to dredge out the creek and drink from that, you just stick the straw down in it and go to town. Or, kneel down over a stream. If you're hiking, you've got a cup that you dip into a creek and you're worried about Giardia, beaver fever, and you use this straw and it filters out 99.9% of bacteria and protozoa and plastic, microplastics and chemicals. It does all the things you would expect it to be. It's made with BPA-free plastic. And what's really neat, this straw has a shelf life of 5 years, even after it's opened. So if you crack it open today, sip a little bit of water out of the pig trough, then you can put it back in the pocket or back in the glove box or back in the pocket of your side-by-side, and 5 years. You got 5 years to use that however. You're looking at that 5 years equates to about 265 gallons of water. So one straw, you can draw a total of 265 gallons. And by draw, this is direct draw. You're drawing this right into your mouth. So just like a drinking straw, it's not that there's a little pump. There's any way to run water through it that you fill up a container. It's just a straw that compact. So you carry it around that way. Well, right now, Sierra Madre, for you guys as listeners, as part of their promo deal, of course, they are offering a 50% off discount. They obviously track to see how much interaction they get from these individual platforms, these individual sponsors that they're or platforms that they're using. Goodness, what am I trying to say? Podcast and other sources, social media sources they're using, and that's how they determine that. So they track all of that stuff. So right now, 50% off, which is $22 for one of these drinking straws, but you get a better price if you buy more. So like you get up to a 5-pack, it's the economy of scale is at work there, so the price becomes cheaper. So if you want to check that out, there's a link in the show notes where you can navigate to that and get all the details, take advantage of that sale, and make your purchase. Okay, today's podcast guest is Hunter Forsberg, and Hunter is in Idaho, and he is a startup pastured pig operation. In fact, he would say, well, my pigs really aren't on pasture right now because it's Idaho and a lot of snow on the ground, very cold. But it's really good. I enjoy these talks to new startup producers because you just get a feel for what they have to offer, what challenges they run into, maybe even a little bit of advice based upon some conversation we have. But I just enjoy it. I think it's fun to have a conversation with somebody that's just starting and say, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I remember that enthusiasm. I remember when we were first starting out and the things we weren't sure of and what's going to happen next. So I appreciate that. Hope you guys do as well. So we'll get into the conversation with Hunter, and I will catch you guys on the tail end of the interview. Welcome, Hunter.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. So kind of a dumb question. How are things in Idaho? Are they a little chilly right now?
Yeah, they're plenty cold.
Yeah.
Right now we don't have quite as much snow as we expected, but I'm sure we'll get it.
Yeah. All right. So whereabouts in Idaho are you? I've never been to Idaho. I've been close, western Montana, but are you northern, central, southern?
Southern. We're as closest to Utah and as close to Wyoming as you can get.
Okay. Well, very good. Very good. So that's pretty good elevation, isn't it?
Yeah, we're about 6,000 feet.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, so tell me a little bit. So for those listening, Hunter, he does his pre-screening information like I like everybody to do. Appreciate him doing that. So he is newer to the pig farming. And so as we get into these type of discussions, I love these discussions, talking with new producers and kind of getting their take, but I like a little bit more of the history as to why. So Hunter, let's start there. Is this kind of your home turf, and what got you into wanting to raise pigs on pasture?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I guess I've just always had an interest in pigs. I mean, the whole community here is very agriculture based. Everyone has cows and farms some way. I personally never did, um, but I had uncles and stuff that had cows. But every time we went to the fairs, they had pigs, and I was just super intrigued by all these pigs they had around and how big they could grow.
Yeah.
Um, and then I got married, and my wife's family, they have cows and farm and do all that stuff. And so I kind of started playing around with the idea. Did you guys know that, the best animal you can graze on an acre of ground is a pig? And they kind of heard about it, and so we started looking into it and got our first couple pigs. Um, that's what their family's always done. They raise cattle, but they've always had everything running around on the farm. They have sheep, they've had a couple goats, emus. They've had it all except for pigs. So now we have pigs.
Okay, okay. So it sounds like so then Canyon Road Farm and Ranch, that's your in-laws farm.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's their farm, and we have a couple cows we run with theirs and help them out when we can. And
okay. So you get married, the wife brings you back to meet the family, and then you tell a cattle farmer, "Hey, we need to start putting pigs on the place."
there you go.
All right, very good, very good. So and they didn't run you off. It's not.
Not yet.
I guess it's not like the old history where it'd been worse if you're like a sheep farmer and you're bringing sheep into open range cattle. That was the old history war, wasn't it? The old grazing wars with the sheep and
Yeah, there you go. And they all used to be sheep farmers, so I think they're okay with it.
that works out well. So so with that elevation, and again, this is my ignorance when it comes to what you're dealing with over there as far as lay of land, is that that's not high desert, right? That's it's arid, but it's not high desert, is it?
Um, you could call us a desert because we don't get hardly any rain, but we get enough snow in the mountains that it feeds all the rivers and flows through the valley the rest of the year, and we do pretty good on that.
Okay. So how would you describe your pasture? I mean, what's your grazing density on your cattle? Maybe that'll give us an idea of what you're dealing with the pigs.
Well, most of the cattle go up to the forest to graze in the summer, and so it leaves a lot more open fields for the pigs to go graze.
Yeah.
And I don't know, here in the valley, it's pretty flat, not a lot of trees, and some thick areas they can get back into with small brush. And
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's been cleared for hay.
Okay. So it's a type of pasture area that it does produce enough density that you guys can justify doing hay production off of it. What's not being grazed then?
Yep, yeah. Most of the fields here are hay or a weed of some kind.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. What kind of forage are the pigs finding? I mean, do you have, so it sounds like a lot of it's cleared. If they have access to the woods, is there any hardwoods? Is that all evergreen type stuff?
Yeah, it's all evergreens. We don't have hardly any hardwoods here, pine and stuff. But I don't know. I kind of got into the game late in the summer, and so they didn't have a lot of time to graze much open ground. Um, we had a bush in where we had the pigs, and they just loved that. So we got to figure out what kind of bush that was, and either save it or go get some more of them.
Right. So yeah, that's interesting. So you put them in a section, they're grazing, but they take a fancy to a specific plant there. Did they just eradicate it, roots and all, or they eat it down?
No, it was a big enough bush that they just stripped the leaves off of it and left the le rest alone.
Hmm.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the spring there.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it sounds like I mean pigs are resilient when it comes to the forage, so it sounds like they've found something they've liked, and it obviously didn't have any ill effects on them. So,
No?
so yeah, maybe onto something there that gives them some, especially if it's a decent sized bush, you can give them some cover. If it's one of those things where they're going to graze to a certain height or they're going to forage to a certain height, and then that still gives them some cover and shade in the heat of the summer. I know. Out west, you guys can obviously have some pretty good temperature extremes. I assume in the summertime it can get pretty warm out there as well, right?
Yeah, we can get close to 100 most years.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yuck. So tell me a little bit about the pigs that you have. Just starting out, you decided, hey, I want to bring some pigs on the farm. You've convinced your wife, you've convinced the in-laws to let you bring pigs on. What did you do? What was your process in going through and finding pigs? Were you looking for a specific breed, or you just kind of find whatever you could?
well, that's where it started out was I mean, everyone here has cows and quite a few people have sheep, but there weren't that many that had pigs. And that was one of the things that intrigued me about it. Was why does nobody do pigs here? And so we talked to the one person that does have some pigs. They probably raise 80 pigs, and they're more of a confinement raised pig. They're a Burke Hampshire cross, I think. And so we talked to them, got a couple piglets. I think we got three from them, and then two of them only made it a few weeks and died.
Oh, wow.
So we kept raising the one gilt, and then did some more investigating. Some people that had smaller groups of pigs, and we end up getting two more. Um, They were an Idaho pasture pig crossed with a Hereford.
Hmm. Interesting.
And so we went up there and toured their facility there, and they had this massive um, Idaho pasture boar, and he was just massive, and that's what the guy was telling us is that was one thing he'd do quite different is not raise that boar so big,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it was fun to go see his setup there, and we learned a lot of things, and I'm hoping to stay in contact with him and learn some more about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's back up a little bit if you don't mind. So do you know
Mhm.
with the pigs that you lost, was that a disease maybe, or do you have any idea what caused their demise?
Not really. One of them we think had a respiratory infection,
Mm.
and we didn't get the antibiotics to it quick enough. And the other one we're not really sure of. It was fine one night, and the next day it was gone. I've heard it could have been a twisted gut.
Hmm. Okay.
We're not fully sure on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's part of it. That's part of the learning process. Obviously you hate to lose an animal, but sometimes it happens for sure. So you say you've got two gilts and a boar. So you've got three pigs on farm right now. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. And so your your gilts are cross, and I'm looking at my notes here, make sure. So you've got an IPP and a Hereford cross, and you've got a Hampshire Burke cross. Those are your two
That's
gilts.
right.
Okay. And was your boar cross as well?
It's a cross as well.
And is he IPP and something else?
Yeah, that same Hereford.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. That'd be interesting to see the confirmation of that and see what those pigs actually look like. Should be pretty
Yeah,
thick.
it should be fun.
Yeah, yeah. So how old are they right now?
Um, I was just trying to figure out they should be coming up on 5 months.
Okay, okay. So are you? I assume right now, since we're recording this the second week of February, I assume um, you all don't have a lot of grazing opportunities for them. Do you have a snowpack right now? I know you said you've got a little bit of snow, but
Yeah, we have probably 2 feet of snow right now, and so they have a covered area and they keep the rest plowed out pretty good, just walking around and keeping it packed down. So we throw them hay pretty much daily, and they keep that chewed up, and what they don't eat, they lay around in, and they don't seem to mind it.
yeah, yeah. So obviously 5 months they've not come into any type of heat cycle now. Are you getting to where you're going to separate them quickly? Are you before they hit a heat cycle so they don't breed young? Are you looking to go ahead and breed them? What's your
Well,
approach on
that's one of those things we got to figure out still.
that? Okay, okay, yeah,
I think we probably will end up having to separate them and then figure it out here in a few months. But
yeah, yeah. I'd give those probably give those girls my situation. I'd probably give those girls a little bit longer. Let them mature a little bit more before the boar has a shot. Now, is he the same? So he's the same age. His litter was about the same time.
um, yeah, I think he was just a little bit older than one of the other Hereford gilt we got.
Yeah. Okay. So he may not be pitching yet anyway. So he may need a couple months to develop as well too. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So with the it sounds like with the existing farm, of course, there's infrastructure in place, but not necessarily infrastructure for pigs. So what were you discovering, or what are you running into to say, well, the farm's set up for cattle, and they had sheep and even emus, but this is what we need to do for the pigs. What's kind of the next several months once the snow's off and it's time to get them back out on pasture? What infrastructure are you looking to put in?
Yeah, so the barn, I guess, started out as a dairy barn, and they ran 80 to 100 dairy cows in there, and now they've moved over to beef, and so there's still a lot of loafing stalls around that we've talked about using for a kind of a maternity pen for the pigs. Um, but all around the barn are different smaller pastures already broken down for different ages of cattle or in different situations. So I'm looking to see if we can turn them out into there with a just a hot wire fence or something.
Yeah, yeah. So probably the existing fence for the cattle, is it woven? Is it barbed wire? What's its configuration?
Half of it's woven with the top wire being barbed, and so I think we should be able to run most of them on that. But
Yeah.
half the fences are just barbed wire right now.
Okay. So just on the inside of that, maybe run a hot wire low to keep them from rubbing up against your woven, and then you've already got your posts and all that taken care of.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that'd be good. Depending on the squares of your woven, that'd be good for your piglets too. Train them on electric. That way they're
Hmm.
not able to get through. Interesting. Okay. So so looking at breeding. So if we go, it's February and they're 5 months old. So let's say you go a full 12 months. So that would be what? That'd be 7 more months. That would be September. So September breeding would produce that would produce into December, 1st of January farrowing. What's your thoughts on farrowing up in Idaho? Is that something you want to farrow in the spring, in the fall, in the winter, summer?
We were hoping in the fall or even late summer, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's yeah. There's difference of opinion on that when it comes to farrowing in the really cold. I know I've got several people we've had on the podcast that in Wisconsin and Michigan and those areas, and really dealing with some serious cold, and then they like to farrow in the winter because the pigs seem to do better with that. And then some that say, I never farrow in the winter. I always want to farrow in the summertime. So I think obviously you've got some great infrastructure there with the dairy barn, that being able to pull those gilts in, let them farrow in at least in some good shelter, and at that point you can kind of see how that works out for you. Of course, all that's going to be based upon when you decide to actually allow them to mingle and do that. So being able to keep track of that's another nice thing about having them close by. You can obviously observe, see when heat cycles start to pop up here in the next 60, 90 days. Those girls definitely should start showing some heat cycle, I would think.
yeah, we're thinking so too. I mean, they've been growing good, but I don't know. We're still trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. So what have you discovered so far, Hunter, that you would say is maybe the biggest challenge that you're seeing with the farm, with the setup, with your experience? Is there something that you're like, okay, this is really the biggest issue I think I'm going to have to address? Have you run into anything yet?
I think the biggest thing I'm going to run into is what to graze them on.
Mm,
For the most part, all the pastures around it have been in alfalfa for the last couple of years. There's a few that we grow three or four different species of grasses in, but where everything's cut for hay, they either want to grow it up tall or just keep cows on it year round. And so I think that's going to be my biggest thing is finding just a good solid place to run them that's going to have enough yield. I'm sure we'll still have to supplement them with some kind of grain.
mhm.
And I guess that's probably the thing that intrigues me the most is the different feeds to put them on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think for any production level, even with those breeds, you're definitely going to want to give them a feed supplement, some sort of protein grain there that they can put on that weight and build. Um, but forage is going to be nice. The alfalfa would be nice. I think of the wear and tear that those pigs are going to have on those alfalfa fields. So keeping them moving is going to be super key there to keep from having a lot of destruction on your pasture. But well, let me ask you this: how big? So how much land do you guys have access to on the ranch? I mean, is a shortage of land an issue, or is there just like you got more land you know what to do with when it comes to access there?
Well, right now I think they farm about 800,
Yeah, that's a lot of land.
and then they have a few other smaller pastures they lease here and there, and we've just started leasing another piece that we're not sure how it's going to be to run cows on it.
Hmm.
It has a lot of trees, and so I might start working with my father-in-law on that, see how we can run pigs in there and clean that up a little bit because I think there's a lot of stuff in there that the cows just aren't going to touch, and I wonder if the pigs would be really good in there.
Yeah, yeah. Now you're talking. So I think that's kind of what we're doing here on our place, and sans cows. I've said for the last 10 years now I wanted to have cattle and haven't made it to that point yet, but having the pigs go first to clear out a lot of the underbrush and spend time in the woods, get them off the pasture that you're going to be cutting hay from, but get them out in the woods to do some of that frontline clearing there, and then in the rotational process, let the cattle come back in behind them if they cleared out enough, or just keep them in the woods. I think that's where maybe, and my goodness, really underscore the benefit for the in-laws to say, hey, here we go. The pigs go first. They'll set things up. They'll clear some of this stuff out. They'll take out some of the undesirable things, and then you can do some reseeding or something there, and then let the beef come through, or just keep it specifically for the pigs. So I think you say you don't get a lot of rain, but you get enough snow melt, and of course that means that water's isolated in areas, specific tributaries and stuff. Here in West Virginia, we get too much rain. We don't know what to do with all the water that falls out of the sky. So how, when you look at this 800 acres and you're thinking that wooded area, is there going to be a challenge getting access to water there? Is where you guys are, you doing wells that are 800, 900, 1200 feet deep? What's the water situation like in that neck of the woods?
So most of the tributaries they've already piped and just run them from irrigation water.
Oh, okay.
We have a couple, well, we have a pivot, and then most everything else is in wheel lines or hand lines. And so it's a lot going out and moving pipe around to get everything watered. And that specific spot with that we just started leasing with all the trees in it, it has a creek that goes right through the middle,
Hmm.
but no good way to irrigate it because it's so steep and brushy, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so that is the challenge, is getting everything to grow year round.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, I know when you get out west, things get a little dicey when it comes to building impoundments and trying to hold water, ponds and those type of things. So I assume that's probably not a very easy option. Probably have some permitting and things to jump through. But looking at doing something to suspend that melt off into some larger reservoirs or impoundments could be an option. Leased land, yeah, that
Hmm.
obviously makes that a little trickier as well. But it's great. It sounds like the original 800 acres has all the infrastructure in place to get water pretty much wherever you need to. You just have to move some things around and configure things properly. But it sounds like it's not going to be a deal breaker.
Yeah, I'm hoping. That is one thing with the 800 acres. It is broken up in different areas, but they're all here fairly close.
Mhm.
Um, no, I think it will be a little bit of trial and error. See what does good in what place and where we can make it work.
Yeah, yeah. So what are the plans? Obviously, just starting out. So I know that a lot of these plans are going to be written in pencil. It's one of those things as you said, just kind of learning as you go along, figuring out some of the details. But what's your thoughts on this? Is this to raise pork to be just some of your own personal consumption? Is this to scale it up to the point that it becomes an income generator, pairs well with the beef, kind of make it more of a broader protein farm? What do you see in there? What do you want to happen ideally?
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we started into the pork just to see what we could do with them. And we're hoping to, in the near future, get enough that we can consistently provide for ourselves the pork and then start selling it to family and then go on from there, selling wholes and halves probably. We're trying to experiment with that with the beef also,
Yeah.
selling people halves and quarters.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, ultimately we'd like to scale it up a bit more and see how many we could get to work here.
Yeah.
Right now we run probably just over 100 head of beef. So I figure if you can run 200 head of pigs, you should be about balanced out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to assume that you probably have an all farm job, right? That you're not a full time farmer.
Yeah, right now I do.
Okay.
It'd be nice to get back to just full-time farming, but
Okay. Okay. And you said something there that you guys are kind of sticking your toe in the water, even selling wholes and halves. So I assume selling direct to consumer is kind of a new thing for the entire farm. Have they just been dealing with the market type of thing? How have you guys been moving the beef?
yeah, typically we just haul them up to an auction and sell them off to a slaughterhouse, or sometimes a new farm will go up there and buy a couple heifers. But for the most part, they've just slaughtered a couple for themselves over the years and maybe some close family members. But
Yeah.
we're starting to look into that, finishing some of our own beef. And
Yeah. Well, what's your closest metro? Again, I'm not 100% clear on the Idaho's geography. I know obviously Boise's in there somewhere. How closer to a major metro area?
that's a good question. Maybe 3 hours
Okay. Okay. So you've got
to a big city. We have a decent city is about an hour and a half.
okay.
A couple little college towns, but
So there's some potential direct to consumer markets around you that's not too crazy. As far as super big drive that you're going to have to drive a lot to establish business relationships with potential customers.
I think the biggest thing we're going to see is where we are such a rural agricultural community. Everyone, at least has a cousin that sells beef. So I think that's going to be our
Yeah,
biggest thing. We're just finding people that don't just have a cousin.
yeah, yeah. It's like trying to sell hay to when you're all in hay fields. Like I got hay to sell. Yeah, so does everybody else.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So going out finding that market, looking for those urban suburban settings where you can do some direct to consumer sales there. Interesting. So, what are I assume Idaho? If I'm trying to remember details, Idaho is a custom exempt in USDA, but they're not a state inspected when it comes to processing for retail. Have you checked into that yet, or do you know the details?
I checked into it once and I don't remember what it was.
Hmm.
You do have to be USDA certified and all that to do the to resell individual cuts.
Cuts, yeah,
Something I didn't even know was an option in our place. We can slaughter the animal and then take it to a butcher shop.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's several out west states that have that ability. You don't have to bring a live animal, which I find that intriguing because it
Yeah.
definitely it makes loading day a little easier when they're not running around all the time. Um, so do you have a USDA processor close by? Is that another challenge you're going to run into?
We have one that's probably about an hour away, maybe just under.
That's not too bad. Okay.
Um, there's a local butcher here that I actually worked for a little while. That was one of the things that intrigued me about pork was I was in there for a little while and they started cutting up a couple pigs and that was just a whole different experience than cutting up wild game or even a beef.
Yeah.
It's just a totally different cut of meat. But I think we'd probably work with them at first to sell wholes and halves, and then might venture over into that other shop that's an hour away and try the USDA if it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Idaho, I'm pretty certain they are an exempt. They're an exempt state. Most states are. So you have that opportunity to do wholes and halves for your customers.
Hmm.
And then pairing that does that same processor, he obviously does beef, right? Because you said he was doing beef, so you could have that
Yep.
opportunity to package. Yeah, that'd be interesting to look at bundling that type of stuff. And if there's not a lot of pigs in the area, maybe that's the thing. You start selling a lot of pork products to a lot of these beef producers around you, and then maybe that helps build your base market as you look to expand into more urban suburban areas. Yeah,
For sure.
cool. All right, good deal. So, so I'm curious. Are there other areas? I know you said your in-laws farm that have some other animals, some emus type of thing. Are there other animals that you guys are looking into to produce at a resale level for protein or?
Well, my wife wanted to get a couple ducks, and so we went and got a couple ducks, and we didn't plan on having them for eggs, but I guess in the current market, it might be worth it.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, my chickens just started laying again, the freeloaders. So yeah, it worked out perfect. I got 36 eggs today, so I was excited.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No,
Um,
for the most part, just right now, the pigs and the cows, they have a few sheep, but not enough to do a big market on them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay. So let's go back to farrowing type of thing. So hopefully here within let's just say for the sake of easy math, here in the next year, you're going to have hopefully have successful farrowing, have some piglets on the ground, doing all that kind of stuff. Are you looking at see with have you heard yeah, I mean you could have good litter, you could have 20 25 pigs. Are you looking to raise all those out, or are you going to look to maybe sell some of those, or just obviously just wait and see what happens?
We'll probably try and raise most of them out whatever we can, especially with the space we have, if we
Mhm.
can pasture them well. And um, if not, it seems like we have a really hot piglet market here.
Hmm.
A lot of 6 to 8 week old piglets are selling over $200, and
Oh wow. Yeah.
that seems awfully high to me, but maybe not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's variables there, but yeah, that's definitely on the higher end of what I've seen currently on the market right now with when it comes to piglets. Just depending on what they are, of course. But yeah, it could be an opportunity there as things go and grow that you could build that into a feeder operation as well. So, all right. Um, well, obviously it's too soon. I always like to talk to people when they talk about farrowing. Obviously, the castration aspect of that. Do you think you'll plan on the castrating? Is that something you're going to research, do more, or are you going to plan on taking that on their own farm?
I guess we'll probably have to try and figure out how to do it here.
Yeah, yeah, I
Usually
know.
when we run the cows through and brand them, we'll Cheerio them, and I found out you can't do that with pigs, so it will be a little bit different experience.
it's, a, it's a little different process. Yeah, a little bit more surgical to take care of pigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, that's exciting. I think back to when we first got started and the challenges that we faced. We had zero infrastructure here, and it was an old, worn out vegetable farm on slopes. It was a real mess. But it's exciting to see somebody get started and at least have some of this core infrastructure in place. And you've got water, you've got shelter, you've got open ground, you've got sounds like a lot of fence, at least the backbone fence in place. Um, are you thinking about with all this grazing opportunity? Are you thinking about a lot of moving paddocks instead of permanent fencing or some netting? How are you thinking about keeping that infrastructure going?
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to do more temporary to start with, see where we want to move them around exactly, see how that works out with the if it's something we can leave up year round. With traditional netting, the snow is terrible on them.
Yeah,
It will freeze to it, and then when it starts to settle, it'll pull all the netting down and over the winter. So we go around every spring, pull that all back up, and so we'll probably try and avoid that the best we can. And then, so yeah, right now temporary, try and train them on a electric fence and move around as much as we can, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I know we've talked a little bit about feed and still kind of exploring that. Do you have, I assume, since you're in cattle country, you probably have access to decent feed mills and those opportunities as well?
Yeah, yeah, we have one here right in town that um, does pretty decent, I think. It may not be the best deal out there, but it's local, and I feel like it's a decent feed. And then we can get seed from them also. And we have a couple spaces that we winter all the cows on and just feed them hay throughout the winter. And so I'm wondering about it if we could go out there and plant something just to keep up with the pigs, and we can't graze the cows on it in the summer. And so I might look into an option there also.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. So what is your current watering situation? I know you've got access to water with the irrigation. Are you using tubs? You transporting water, or just filling up buckets right now? And when you go to be mobile, have you figured out a game plan when it comes to keeping your water mobile as well?
Um, I've thought about it. I've seen a lot of people do like the wagon wheel method. Is that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
And so we can have kind of a central place and probably put a big waterer there. If not, there's a creek that feeds through most of those fields that we can probably get them access to as long as we can keep them in around the water. Um, right now we are doing mostly buckets. We have a heated livestock water that's close by for horses that we can use. It'll be another one that was tried out as we go.
yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you, are you chipping ice right now? Is the barn heated, or do you have any way to keep your water from freezing?
Not right now. The other stock waters we have are too tall for the pigs, and we are trying to figure out how we could build a ramp up to them or
Right.
what we could do there.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, lot of great challenges there, but it's exciting to think be able to kind of think out, engineer some of those processes to make it more advantageous to the pigs. And my goodness, with the cold temperatures you got to deal with, that's I like the fact that we at least get we'll get freezing temperatures for a week or so, and then we get above freezing, so things start to thaw out again. Makes a lot of mud, but at least we're not dealing with 3 or 4 straight months of solid freeze. So
Yeah.
that is an interesting challenge for you guys. So
Yep, the last week was a little interesting. We were up to 50 degrees and then we dropped back down to below zero the next week. And
yeah, that's a pretty good swing. Interesting, very good. All right. Well, let me ask you this. I think this is. I always ask this question of everybody, and obviously you kind of getting new into pigs, but from what you've seen so far with pigs, and obviously you've got some experience with cattle, been around that longer. What do you like? What's something that's really stood out to you about the pigs that make you think this is something I really want to do? I really like seeing this in this specific animal.
I think they're individual personalities. The cows, they all have their own personalities as well, but for the most part, they're all have the same mentality. The
Yeah.
pigs, I feel like are just a little more individualized, maybe. Um, One thing that I experienced when we were trying to give one of them a shot is the other pigs would come over and bite at your heels, trying to get you away from them. It's a, it's a different aspect to me. Um, just the way the different animals act. We have one that'll come over and about lay on you until she gets your belly scratched, and we got one that doesn't really like you to touch her at all. But
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, the personality of the pig is I do find that fascinating, and a lot of variables there. As your boar, is he pretty chill? I would think being IPP, he's probably pretty laid back.
yeah, he's not too bad. He's not the friendliest, but he doesn't hate you being in there with him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one where start to ply him with treats, and equate a treat with a back scratch or an ear scratch type of thing, and be able to get him to warm up to you. That was the issue I had with the large blacks that we just retired. They were huge pigs and really big tusks, but they were pussycats, man. They just loved to come up and get scratching, and if you wouldn't give them any attention, they'd try to rub their face against your leg, and of course, when you got those big hooks sticking out of the side of your face, and you go to rub up again, he's like, "All right, yeah, I'm thinking I could turn around." They end up cutting the pants right off of me because they're just trying to get a face rub there. But yeah, but it's good. The personality of the pig is definitely something that endears me to them as well. Well, I always like to ask about the goal thing, and I know you're just starting out, so it's kind of tough to do this. But if you could look in a crystal ball 5 years down the road, in 5 years, and I'm going to assume by looking at you because we're on video here that you're a young fella, so obviously you've got some opportunity to plan ahead. Lord willing, that you get some great opportunities there. So, what do you think in 5 years? Where would you like to see Hunter and your wife and the family farm, all this type of thing? What do you see in 5 years? What would be kind of a key goal to look for?
I guess just get more pigs on it for now. Get a good sustainable herd going. I guess you can call them a herd.
Yeah,
And no, start selling to more of the local people here. I think a lot more people are catching on to the more natural way of raising animals and getting a closer connection to your food.
yeah, good. Yeah, that's one thing we didn't talk about is obviously the educational side of that and educating people on why you have the pig out walking around versus having it in a confined area. So it sounds like people are seeing that in your area, and may not be as much of a learning curve to push when it comes to understanding the benefits of a pastured pig. Great. Well, Hunter, I assume starting out, obviously, probably don't have much of you don't have a farm store, online website, or anything like that yet. But are you on the webs when it comes to the farm? Is there any way people can find you out there?
Um, Not yet. That's one thing
Okay.
we talked about was starting to sell the wholes and halves and quarters, and is we were going to try it this first year, see how many we could get sold just by word of mouth, and then see if it's worth it to start doing a Facebook page or something.
Yeah.
My wife's a marketer,
All right.
and so I think she could figure it out. I think that's what you are too, right?
Yes, yes. I claim to be one. That's yeah. Been doing that for about 20 years, so we'll see. So far, nobody's run me out of
Yeah,
town
yeah.
yet,
She's
but
shaking her head at me that she doesn't want to do it either.
yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah. Well, we could spend another hour in podcast talking about the demise of the marketing industry with all kinds of things going on right now. But yeah, interesting. But yeah, looking at that and saying, yeah, okay, yeah, well, at some point we'll want to stick our toe in the water, and maybe it is something simple as a social media page, Facebook page, Instagram, something like that, just to get the word out so people can have that visual, and then just take baby steps when it comes to having more of a digital presence and doing sales that way. It's good. Yeah, it's wise. All right. Well, Hunter, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. Enjoyed talking with you.
yeah, it's been great. Hopefully, I can maybe come back when I have more knowledge. And
Yeah, I love doing follow-ups with the farms that are just getting started, and usually come back in a year or so, and then we get to hear good stories about how you did really well here or you did really terrible there. Pig flipped you over the fence, whatever the case may be. There's always good anecdotes to come after a while. So we'll definitely put you on the list here and follow back up with you in a while.
all right, sounds great. I hope there are some good stories. So,
There you go. Well, man, I pray you have a good week, and it's good talking with you. Well, I really appreciate Hunter coming on the podcast, and I think it takes some courage to come on the podcast when you're new, just because you're not sure what you got, and some people, it's kind of funny when I those of you guys have been on the podcast before, you know how this works, that we have some discussion, the pre-screening information prior to. And some people are like, well, I'm not sure what you're going to ask me. Do I have to be super prepared? Well, if you come on the podcast, if you've listened to it long enough, you know that I'm not asking for hard data. I'm not asking to say, okay, I need your profit margin. I need this. I want that. You don't have to come super prepared for the podcast interview. When we do these farm introductions, it's basically just tell me about your farm and why you do what you do, why you like doing it, and the challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them. That's the gist of one of our interviews. So it's pretty laid back when it comes to that. Now, sometimes when we get topic specific, and we'll have those discussions from time to time, love to have more of those, wink, wink, for you guys to listen to. So when we get more topic specific, then there's a lot more discussion on the front end where we say, okay, here's what we're thinking, or here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? What can you bring to the table when it comes to this discussion? And hoping to get more of those lined out in 2025. I posted on our Pastured Pig Facebook group some things that I was looking for, and I got some feedback. I'd love to have some more. One of which was a discussion of kind of a roundtable type discussion of producers that are currently shipping out of state or even across the country their products. And I wanted to get several people on to discuss that. And I've got two that are in my books, and obviously we got to figure out how we can line up and get everybody talking at the same time. I'd like to have one more. So if you're listening to this and you currently ship products, your pork products specifically, across the country, and wouldn't mind coming on the podcast to talk about why you do it, how you do it, some of the challenges you've faced, all those type of things, then let me know. Just reach out to troy@redtoolhouse.com, or of course you can use the pre-screening information on the Pastured Pig website, pasturedpig.com. Just click be a guest, and you'll see that pre-screening information. So I'd love to have that feedback. Also, if you just want to do a basic farm introduction, kind of like what we just did today, I'd love to have more of those. Honestly, my queue is a little low. I think I've only got one left in the queue. So if you want to have Pastured Pig podcast episodes upcoming, I need subject matter. I need people. I need people to interview. So send a link to somebody, have them share it, or share my link with somebody to have them come fill out the pre-screen info. Or if you haven't been on the podcast yet and you're a listener, consider joining us if you've got an operation going, even if you're just starting out. All right. Well, again, I appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate your patience. I appreciate the Patreon supporters to keep this going. There are times that it is tough. There's a lot of work with the front end, putting this together. and managing it all. And you guys have seen, especially the Patreon supporters, appreciate you guys, the ebb and flow as we just try things out to see what works. I recognize that there's a finite audience for this podcast. There's only so many people that are interested in pastured piggery. So I don't have these delusions of grandeur where I expect thousands and thousands of listeners. But we do have a good audience. And in fact, I really haven't talked about it much, but I believe we just broke 350,000 downloads of a podcast. So we're 137 episodes, I believe, and 350,000 downloads. So that's kind of cool. Big benchmark there. Doesn't really mean much other than just that even number, but it's exciting, and I hope to keep it going. I think there's still plenty of things to talk about with pastured pigs. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody listening. I pray you all have a great week. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.